Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another impactful edition of Champions Network TV, your platform of powerful conversation, fresh perspectives, and bold ideas and the matters that affect the diaspora and the wider world. I am your host, Misha, and today we are diving into a truly important and timely discussion about Abraham Traore. Is he the model of African youth? This topic touches lives, raises questions, challenges us all to think critically and act with purpose. We are honored to have a diverse, insightful panel with us today to break into this and the impactful dialogue. We have got Jenna, seasoned farmer, politician, and business
Mm,
person. And we have got Shumba, a politician, geopolitics analyst, and focuses much on the relationship between Africa and the West. And he is going to lead us in this discussion today. Welcome, Jenna and Shumba.
Welcome, Misha.
welcome. Good night. Good evening.
Mm.
So let's dive into it. And to your viewers, whether you are tuning in from across Africa, Europe, America, or beyond, we invite you to watch, just not watch, but engage. Drop your thoughts, questions, and comments in the chat. This is your platform too. So let's get into it and let's begin. Shumba.
Yeah. So we've been observing, I think, the what's happening in the Sahel region of Africa. I think there's a revolution taking place, whether other people are accepting it as a revolution or they just think it's a passing phase. It will remain to be seen. But I think there's a new sort of initiative of looking at African politics that has been ushered in by the Sahel region. So what we call the Sahel region is Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. So what these three countries have done is they've come together to create some sort of federation. And their federation is mainly based on that they felt that if they remain as just separate without coordinating, then the powers be will take them out. So what has happened in the Sahel region is the traditional leader politics that we have had across Africa. I think some of the leaders in the Sahel region saw that it was not working, because basically what we had in Africa was what we have in most African countries, I can say, are colonial administrators. These are people that are just put in power and they are told to just sit in the position as president, prime minister, or whatever, and then they don't control the strings, they are controlled from behind. So they play to a narrative, they are given a script book to say, by the Western world especially, to say, you've got to act according to our interests. We will provide, maybe they are guaranteed security, they are guaranteed uh, they can abuse their populations at will, and there are no consequences. So what we have seen in the Sahel region is new leaders coming to the fore to say we have had enough of this. We have got the resources, but they are being shipped to the west. You've got Mali is known for gold. That gold is just leaving the country, and there's no benefit to the country itself. What you see is only the politicians or the leaders and the crew of politicians are the ones benefiting. You go again to Niger, to Burkina Faso, that was the problem. And then these new military leaders have risen up to say, enough of this. We need a new kind of politics. And to a lot of people, because we have been so biased towards elections and democracy, we think it's a bad, some majority think it's a bad thing. But personally, I think it's high time Africa start to comprehend these matters, that democracy doesn't come overnight. The problem we have in Africa is we talk of wanting democracy, but we don't have the institutions to support that democracy that we speak about. So I think sometimes it's better to build those institutions and then later on practice democracy, because you can't do it the other way around, that you don't have institutions that hold people to account, and then all of a sudden you think you can run a democracy like America, like France or the British. I don't think it's going to work. So we need to break away from that pattern and then start to think outside the box, to say what sort of political makeup or setup do we need that can bring change in people's lives. Because at the moment, what's happening is we have politicians who are benefiting from this type of democracy we are trying to practice, and they just enjoy the power that comes with it. They win elections, but they don't deliver anything to the people. So what we want to prioritize is education, food security, healthcare, and national security. Those are the pillars on which the state should stand. But what we see is all these priorities in most countries that are saying they are practicing this democracy. For Africa, it's not working, and the youth are restless because of this. So we ask the question now, is Ibrahim Traore or the other generals in the Sahel region, are they ushering in a new kind of politics? That's the question we've got to answer today. And it's paramount for Africa to be answering that question, because we need to chart a new way forward where we need to deliver what our people want. We need to prioritize the things that the people want. So I think I'll throw it up for discussion to say, where do we want Africa to go from? Are we seeing the birth of a new kind of politics, or it's just a passing phase? So I'll put it on the floor.
Yeah, the floor is open. Even viewers, if you have got any contribution, put it in the chat box. Don't forget to subscribe to Champion Network TV, and also press the notification bell so that you are notified when we come online. Shumba has given us a thought-provoking question. Is the leadership in the Sahel are the leaders like Ibrahim Traore a model of the future African leadership, or is it a passing phase? It's up to the panel to discuss. Jenna, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, definitely. Right. The question, he rightfully put it across, saying, is it a passing phase or something that can hold water, that can take us as a bridge to the next level? I'll just, in my analysis, I see it as a passing phase, which it might have significant effect, but Remember, we also had such leaders, and I'll cite one leader that I know a lot of people might say they might give some reservations about, but I'll take for example Robert Mugabe. You remember during his time when he stood up and had that statement to say, was it Blair, take your England and I'll keep my Zimbabwe. Those are the kind of words that this young man is just saying. And we also had such leaders as Nyerere and Machel. Those people were also very strong in opposing the Westerners. But and also we're not forgetting this Libyan leader, right? They were also very strong and very, very vocal against the Westerners. But I will just say, let's just wait and see the implementation stage to see how they want to execute it, those leaders. Yes, it's good they've got, they're joining hands and it's actually spreading. I wish it could actually spread to more nations and more leaders buying into the concept. Then we can say maybe it might have a significant effect.
Yeah, a different view coming from Jenna there. It might be a passing phase. It might hold water, or maybe his question is, what's different between the current leadership of likes of Traore? If are they differing from the previous leaders that we had before, citing people like Robert Mugabe, Nyerere? Maybe the question, Shumba, that we may want to ask is Africa ready to do away with the grip that the West had on us, to the extent when anyone has tried to do what Traore is doing, they have got a way of either taking them out or pacifying them?
Yeah, so I think one of our major problems that I've always find with us as Africans, I think normally we think loud. What do I mean when we think loud? When we have plans, we go on top of the roof to announce whatever we intend to do. If you look at the Western world, if you read the history of America, you read the history of maybe the UK, France, what they tend to do, they come up with these projects which nobody knows. And all those people who work on those projects, they have to swear to secrecy. And if you reveal any details about that project, you might even rot in prison. I'll give a good example of Project Manhattan, where America made the nuclear bomb. If you read about it, the level of secrecy that was put on that project, there was no word until the testing of the nuclear bomb was done. So we need that kind of mindset to say, when we have ideas of how to change our nations, we must know that this is just geopolitics. It's nothing to do with the Europeans or whatever. Even within if we look at our ancient history, our kings had their fights, and sometimes you have to hide your card. You don't show your cards openly. You do your things quietly until you know that you have reached the end goal, and then you announce it to the world. So me personally, where I have a problem is I think people coming on the stage, Traore is going to do this, Traore is going to do this. Obviously, the West is not going to like it. And it's not only the West. He's going to make a lot of enemies, which are not even the West, because in geopolitics, India can be your enemy, China can be your enemy. So you need to keep your cards to your chest to say, this is what we are planning to do. And if it's something quite sensitive, you keep it under wraps until the project has come to fruition. It's like a good example is Iran. Have you heard Iran coming openly to say they want to develop a nuclear bomb? They don't say that. They will tell you that their nuclear facilities are for power and for medicine, like curing cancers and stuff. They won't admit that their intention eventually is to have a nuclear bomb because they know the repercussions coming from that. Saddam was bombed. The first time they realized that he was trying to come up with a nuclear bomb, he was bombed. Same with Libya. What we saw with Muammar Gaddafi was not the first time Libya was bombed. Libya was always being bombed because of the sort of innovations that Gaddafi was putting in place in terms of his military. So we need to start to say, if we want to do things, let's plan and execute them quietly. And then when we have achieved whatever we want to achieve, now we can go onto the platform to say, this is what we have achieved.
Thank you. Such a powerful contribution. I think in our olden times, when they were discussing real issues, it is kept under guard. And if you are someone who talks a lot, you'll be sent to different errands. I resonate with you. I think I visited the nuclear bunker in Essex, which was built, I think, just after the Second World War. It was built in secret. Nobody knew where it was, and so that it would keep the administration intact if there is a nuclear attack. So I think, yes, I think I don't know, Jenna, do you agree with Shumba saying we are our worst enemies? We go on the rooftops and talk about what we want to do. Even we are shouting about what Traore is going to do, this Traore has achieved this, making enemies for him.
I think you know me better. I'm always that person who is always
Sticking.
Firstly, I want to challenge that. I want to challenge that story of saying Iran is refusing to accept or is hiding behind the finger. Why do you always want to say what we want or what we think is the right thing? If they are telling you why they've got those nuclear power stations and you don't want to believe it, and you say no, they're hiding, why always be so sarcastic and you don't accept what people say about their about their intentions? Because now you after not accepting what they are saying, then you start building now your argument on what can I call them? I can just call them your fallacies. Zvauri kufunga iwewe ndo zvinofanira kunge zvizvo zviri kuitika, izvo zviri kuitika vachikuudzai. Just like at my house here, you find me ndiri kuchera gomba rangu ndokuudza kuti okay, this pit I want to use it for throwing my litter, but inside your head you thought, no man, they want to bury something. I think they want to bury someone, or they want to kill people and bury them there, and then go on and on and on now saying I actually found them digging a hole, and that hole was actually for the people that were going to be killed.
I think we maybe we're looking at it from a statecraft, where as a nation you need to guard what you want to do as a way you are growing as a nation, and if what you are doing is going to impact you negatively or viewed negatively with the outside world, you give the outside world a narrative that you want them to believe, not what you are actually trying to do. It's like counterintelligence or things like that. They pass on information which is false to safeguard their national security. I think that's that's
It's just that the other nations they feel they actually feel the threat. This might come in this way, and then they make sure they solidify that might. Why solidify on the might? Instead, why don't you make your one and also justify the existence of your own one? Nyaya dzekufungidzirana hatina kwadzinotisvitsa, ndenge tikufungidzira. You always build based on kufungidzira.
But okay, we can get it this way. We as Africans, we were colonized before. In other words, all our systems are foreign to us. So, if we, in other words, the systems that were put in place in our nations were designed to keep us as our suppliers of raw materials. If we are going to decide to put in systems that are going to be at par with those who want to make us remain where we are, I think there is a need for making our decisions not shouting. Because one thing, for example, what we do is when we are making our decisions, we shout at the rooftops, as maybe Shumba had alluded, and we speak, we talk, we communicate them in the language of our former colonizers, which means those deliberations mostly are understood best by the people we are trying to compete with or to try to be at par with. That's where I think we need a very to some extent sophisticated statecraft that safeguards our plans and our directions in terms of where are we going as nations or as Africa as a whole.
Yes, you can say that. Anyway, it's always there, that element of feeling the threat and also trying to counter. Yes, when he says whatever he's saying, there's these other nations, remember, they are listening to everything that he's saying, and they are also preparing for that or countering.
I think that's the purpose of this conversation, to say how does Africa or African nations develop capacity to have those institutions that safeguard our national secrets, if we have. Shumba, I don't know if you have got any contributions you want to make.
Shumba nyaya yabva tsakatika manje.
Ripo.
Yeah, so there's a book I'm reading now. I don't know whether you see the title.
Yeah, the 5 Eyes. I think I started on it as well.
Yeah, the secret history of the 5 Eyes, the untold story of international spy network. It's a very, very fascinating book. And one of the things that I've learned so far, is the strength of institutions from this book. So there was a project after the end of the Second World War. There was a project running in America whereby they were breaking the codes of the Germans. No, just before the Second World War, I mean, they were breaking the codes of the Germans. The British were doing it. The Americans were doing it. But because that time they regarded Stalin as an ally, the American administration, they had given that directive that we shouldn't spy on Russia. But what happened is one of the top guys in the CIA, he opened a project of spying on Russia unbeknown to the president. And it was kept a top secret that even the president didn't know. Because to these guys, this is the bureaucracy we're talking about. They understood that our president is a bit naive. He's so trusting of the Russians. But somehow there are a lot of things that are going on because this CIA were sort of, they were having these problems like every time they can see the penetration of Russian spies in America. And it started to say, no, it doesn't seem to be the work of an ally. So what they did was they opened this office. They didn't tell the president because they knew if they told the president, that program would be stopped. So there was a specific office opened unknown to the president and they were running it. So my point is, this is where I was saying when you talk of institutions, they outlast politicians. So what we need to do, was my argument of having people like Traore, having people like that, what we are having in the Sahel region, is having people who are strong, who can build those institutions that we are talking about. And later on, when those institutions are strong, then we can go on now to practice, whether it's democracy you want to practice or another political sort of system, you can go ahead and sort of practice that. But you would have built your bureaucracy to make sure that it functions. And whether you are doing elections, nobody is going to subvert those sanctions for their own need. You haven't got some people from abroad or external players coming to interfere in your elections as well for their own interest. So this is what we sort of discussing, that you need that level of statecraft, that you go deep. You don't go on the rooftop to say, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to get rid of the US dollar. Who are you to say you want to get rid of the US dollar? Do you know who backs up the US dollar? It's the US military. So when you talk of you want to get rid of the US dollar, are you able to defend yourself when the US military comes knocking on your door? So we need to be very careful to say, when you go there to say, I want to do this, who are your audience? And are they just going to accept what you are saying without any repercussions?
Shumba, can I interject before I forget this point?
Hold on to your argument.
Forget. Okay.
You are not going to forget. Write it in your head. We are going to have a little break.
Go go go, baba na ma.
Let us welcome Soko before we continue.
Hello, guys.
So Soko, you came in when we were in the middle. Yanga tenta pakati kuivuya.
Okay.
The title was is Abraham Traore the model of African youth, and
Okay.
what is happening in the Sahara region. Is it going to be a model? Is it a passing phase, or is it something that is going to shape the politics of Africa? And I think there's been some contribution saying it might be a passing phase, having seen what has happened before with the people like Mama Gaddafi, Saddam, Mugabe, and the likes. And I think then the question we will then grapple with, how is Africa going to safeguard if there is any initiative that seem to bring Africa to the fore? How do we safeguard it? That's where I think Shumba was talking about a strong institution, the statecraft. And before we went on break, Jenna had an interjection. So I give you the opportunity, Jenna.
Okay. Yes. My point of interjection was I wanted clarity on the institution that he has just been talking about, where you are saying it was an institution that was made without the knowledge of the president, because they knew it was against the president's wish. So I wanted to find out how credible, how secure, how safe is that kind of institution in a country or in a republic. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you start such institutions, those are the roots of a coup. The bottom line is it would actually work better if you first convince that president, if you are advisors of the president, instead of starting a new institution behind his back.
I think he will come back and respond. But I think the bottom line, when we look at the West, we have got the politicians and we have got the deep state. The deep state is actually the people that runs government, that shapes the direction of the country. Politicians are just there to just as a I don't know how to unlike in Africa where our president seems to be, it's the other way. The institution or we don't have the deep state, so the institutions actually dance to the tune of the president. But in Western world, the president or those politicians who are in office, they take clues from what the deep state is doing. That's why we are having trouble with the Trump in America at the moment, because he seems not to dance to the tune of the deep state.
That's exactly where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. I was going straight to Trump to say, are you saying he's following that?
Shumba, you can respond if we had Jenna's
yeah, I heard him. No, the institution I'm talking about is the CIA, right? The institution is there already, but it knows that politicians, they come and go. Sometimes as a politician, you do things to be elected. You don't want to do things that can affect your chances maybe of re-election. So the popular belief was Stalin is our ally, right? But those now, when in the CIA, and the FBI, they are seeing the patterns of what's happening with with the Russian spies in America, they realized, no. Even though most of our politicians believe that this guy might be our ally, but the things that he's doing is undermining that friendship. So we need to really get to the bottom of what he is doing. So they didn't tell the president. In the CIA office, there was created a secret office with like I say, Americans, they love these projects where they say it was called Project Vinona, whereby there was people were put in there and told, you don't say a word to anyone, even the other people who are working in the CIA office. Your project is not known. It doesn't exist. So the point of it being, you are strategizing. Later on, the president, when this came out now, when these guys managed to crack the Russian codes, that is when the president realized, oh, these guys have done a brilliant job, and he thanked them. But we are not saying when you are in an institution, you are going outside the confines of the law. You are not going outside the confines of the law to do something illegal, but you are working within the confines of the constitution, but you are disagreeing with the politician. It's like in Zimbabwe, maybe you are working in the government, you are working as a civil servant. You see the politicians are pushing you to do something which you know will send the country down the drain, and you stand resolute and do the opposite of what you are being told to do. That's basically what I'm saying. You have that strong bureaucracy who understands where the country needs to go. And sometimes they have to do things that the politicians are not happy with them doing. I don't know whether you get my point.
I get it very loud and clear, but the problem is that ukapa example yekuti Zimbabwe zvinobva zvadhakwa manje because isusu kuno
Yeah, I know. Okay, Gatisi.
Because I will tell you, kuno kana tikatogadzira toilet yakanaka stereki tikangorika ndaona journalist akasvika panapa tikabvunzwa what's going on, ndinozogotanga ndichitizvo in line with the president's mandate of what I've now built a nice saka kana kuti hazvisiri zvonobatwa uchiri ikoko mari dzavo dzasati abuda.
Yeah, ndazvidzwa ngaisiye matambo iwe uri paground.
Soko muri kuinzwa sei nyaya
in dzepolitics nozviziva kuti handizigoni, because I don't think we understand politics at all as a people. And kana uri murombo, you dance to the tune iri kuridzwa nemunane mari. I think that's what happens in Africa. We sort of jump to the tune of money. IMF ikati jamba iti ngojamba, America ikati tamba iti kutamba. Saka and the povo, the people on the ground, we don't understand. We actually think countries like China, they are here to help us, but hakuna nyika inokubatsira mahara. Kana vari kuuya vanenge vaine zvavari kutoda imomo ende vanototora, because isusu havana problem yekutora because vashoma vanoguta nazvo, and we don't have as much say anyway. It's sad, but like that guy from Uganda was saying, we let our resources go for peanuts because yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, you are very right, Soko. I think I always say in geopolitics, there are no permanent friends. So the problem is people are manipulated. Tomorrow, China, if the West goes away tomorrow, which means it's China for its chance to dominate the world, and it will write its own rule book. And if it means they can do whatever they want because they are the superpower. That's how the world has always worked. And hazvisi zvekuti politics tinofanirwa kuti maybe timbodzokera kumadzimambo edu tinoona kuti waimboitawo sei politics, because it's quite clear if you go to our history how politics was played. Nyaya yemavassal states, they existed in Africa kuti mambo wepanext door apa anoenda unocontrola that kingdom, so that he protects himself maybe from another powerful kingdom from there. There was amalgamation of ma kingdoms, kana kuti ma kingdoms aita come together kuti tinoda unorwa namambo uyu but he's too strong, ngatibatanei madzimambo matatu tinomurwisa tese tiri pamwe chete, handiti? That is part of our history, and that's the same concept that happens in geopolitics. Is the same concept of like you hear America saying us and our allies. It's because they sort of share the same vision of the world, and they see China having a different vision of the world, Russia having a different vision of the world, and they feel like we cannot live under a Russian world. So we have to remain to dominate the present world. We cannot live under the Chinese view of the world. Because what happens when empires fall and empires rise, like now, if America happens to disappear, let's say China becomes the next empire, China is the one going to write the rule book of how international trade, how international norms are done. And for the Western world, they feel, no, we cannot take the rules from China. That's why right now, when you hear the Western world speak with this anti-Chinese sentiment, is because they feel China has become so powerful that if we don't stop it today, tomorrow we're gonna wake up and we are all speaking in Mandarin, or we are mandated to go and learn Mandarin. You see, and that's the world, how the world is worked.
So
I'm not trying to get a new world order, not Traore. How powerful do you think he is other than his mouth?
No, this is what I'm saying, Kuti. The problem is when people go on the rooftop. I really support his kind of revolution. Yeguti, what you find in Africa, most of our leaders, they are there just to save other people's interests, right? They are told, you sit here, enjoy your money. There's no prioritizing of education, healthcare, and what. And IMF comes through the back door here, 2 billion, 3 billion. Do you know where most of that money ends? The model, if you start studying the model of the IMF, World Bank, Paris Club, all these multilateral data institutions, what they do is they know politicians in third world countries are corrupt. So when they come to your country and give you, let's say, 3 billion, they know maybe 90% of that money won't stay in your country. It will be going back to the Western banks to be banked in Western banks. And what they do is as well, like when they negotiate to say, oh, we are restructuring your economy, just go and look at the table of who is there. It's these global banks that have a seat on the table. You have got Goldman Sachs, you've got JP Morgan saying, oh, we are helping Zambia restructure their debt, right? On that 3 billion that they are saying they are giving to Zambia, what you'll find is probably they're gonna say 25% is the fees for doing that. So before even Zambia gets the 3 billion, it's being said it's 3 billion, but maybe 500 million is already gone. And then when they give you, they know your politicians are corrupt. Most of that money is going to be stolen. And where do most corrupt politicians want to bank their money? It's Switzerland. it's the Cayman Islands, it's the Jersey, it's Guernsey, which are most of them are British tax havens, right? Monaco. So when you bring all those billions back, how can their economies not thrive? I've always said, one of the things that I've always said, that if Africa is going to succeed, I think we also need to start having our own tax havens where the thieves, we accept there are thieves in Africa, but they need to start banking on the continent. We sort of specify a country where we say this is free for thieves to bank. Here they do it in Europe. Switzerland is a tax haven. That's where most people, corrupt people, bank their money. But do they talk about it? It's Zimbabwe that's corrupt, but Switzerland is not corrupt. But billions of Africa money it's finding its way to Switzerland. It's finding its way to Luxembourg. It's finding its way to Monaco, Guernsey, Cayman Islands, and all those tax havens. But the whole of the continent, we don't have even one tax haven for our people who are corrupt to hide their money. You see, that's where we start to need to balance things out.
Yeah, but we cannot just balance it nekutaurisa, because kutaurisa, there is going to be some consequences to that too much talking. And also, if you are, for instance, you are talking about Switzerland, right? Being a place where it's taken as a safe haven for putting the monies for the corrupt people, and then taken as also as a tax haven. But now, if you look at Africa as a whole, the currencies that are in Africa, you'll see or realize that I always blame the colonizers because they try to make sure that they keep those currencies weak, and it's very difficult to stabilize those currencies. To say you can now agree on saying, okay, let's look at the Mozambican currency and the South African currency, and then we say we want to put it in one bank and take remember there's an issue which was actually raised of making some currency which is SAD for the SADC region, but those stories are normally just kept as mute because it will be difficult to implement because hatina mari dzosacho. So kwavataura kaza nemubari ndiye mukuru.
Is it because we don't have the resources or we don't have the intelligence to create such institutions?
One of the resources is the brain power. We've been so brainwashed. So we don't realize what we have.
Yeah,
and what we can do.
Because look at what's happening with gold in Africa. I don't want to be specific to Zimbabwe. We are shipping that gold outside. Where is it going? Some people are hoarding. Right now, China is sitting on the largest hoard of gold in the world. It has even told its citizens to buy as much gold as possible. India, if you go to India, even the housewives, you look at the bangles, they wear from here to here. Most of them, they wear gold, right? So I've always I even reached out to our own government about this. We need to liberalize the gold market in Zimbabwe, because all those pensions of people that were wiped in 2008, most of them would have been protected because we have got gold under our feet. That wealth of the people could have been migrated to gold, and gold is always going up, right? So what you find in India, when a child, let's say, has got no school fees, grandma can pull one of the bangles, give it to the child, go to school. Because you've got a store of wealth right on your arm. even though maybe the banks are not working. Same in Zimbabwe. The banks might not work. People might be skeptical about the banks. But if people have got access to gold, they've got an alternative store of wealth which they can use. In times of crisis like 2008, a lot of people could have bought gold and protected their wealth. So sometimes I think what lacks is that brain power you are talking about, to say, what do we have people at the table who can think outside these currencies that we were given? Or we just, this one fails, we bring another experiment, yet the nation itself continues to suffer, and then the IMF is coming, no, if you do this, it will work, if you do this, and nothing works. So those are the things that we need a lot of people to sit down and try to address, to say, we need to address our politics. This is why I'm talking positively about the Sahel region. You need to address your politics, remove the political cycle, and then you need to fix the money. To me, those are the most two crucial issues. When you fix the political cycle and you fix the money, and then you prioritize things, healthcare, you prioritize education, and then you prioritize national security and food security. Those are the pillars on which the state can rest and progress.
We have got a contribution from Jemina. She says, the same way the so-called superpowers say they can't live under China's supremacy is the same way they can't live with the Traore's revolution. Traore is right as long as other African states stand by him. However, African leaders are surrounded by greedy and corrupt politicians, and as such, Traore might end up like Patrice Lumumba. That's a comment from a viewer.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think sometimes we don't put our tendency as Africans. I think one thing that we need also to start doing is to be active in what we say and support our actions with our words, with concrete actions. So, like what's happening in the Sahel, I think rather than people just saying, "Oh, let Traore do this," or people should start sending money to Burkina Faso, saying, "We want you to build this. We want you to do this." Send expertise. Give him advice. They are very intelligent minds in Africa, but sometimes you find people are dying with their excellent knowledge because they are not given the platform to bring the change that is needed in Africa. We have got exceptionally talented individuals, but sometimes they are not listened to. So I think for me, he needs to start to humble himself and really look for African expertise, because I always tell a lot of people don't understand where China came from. China was not a successful nation as it is today until you understand when what was his name after Mao died, the leader. He went to Singapore. He saw what was happening in Singapore, and the guy said, "How have you managed to do this?" And the Prime Minister of Singapore explained to him, Lee Kuan Yew explained to the Chinese leader, is it Xiaoping or something, to say how he had done it. And the guy said, you've got small population. Me, I've got 1 billion people. If this experiment goes wrong, then I won't be able to control it. but he said he would try anyway. That's when China started these export zones to start, and those are what gave that trajectory for China to be where it is today. And the things that China prioritized after that was education. That's why you find most people who are in the Western world, they will tell you there was a time we came here, some of us who came 20 years ago, the amount of Chinese students who were in universities, you don't want to know. They were everywhere. So China knew that without education, you don't go anywhere. So they pushed their kids, but it was structured. The problem in Africa now, you can have people being sent abroad, but most of them don't come back because it's not a structured program. So when we talk about, yeah.
It's most of us, most of them.
Most of us, yeah. So what you find is you are sent abroad, you learn, and then you stay. You don't go back to contribute to the development of the nation, which is totally opposite to what China has done, to what Singapore did actually. So we need to start embracing that kind of change to say, let's sponsor Zimbabweans to go out. And then let's give them the incentive when they've acquired those skills, they come back home to contribute to their motherland. But that kind of...
Can I tell you one thing? That idea worked very well for China. And I can tell you what made it to start to work properly was, I think we are up on Asimanji. If he was here, he would have alluded to that. The story of the I concept. He started drilling his people as van, this for my country. Those people are very, very they know their country and they like their country, which is almost along the same lines of which our president in this country is also trying to do when he's saying he's trying to bring that, and also the story of those Chitepo, the school of ideology. I'm not about Gezaya. It's almost the same thing, but we try to emulate or copy what has been done, and it succeeded. But I don't know where exactly we then go wrong.
Yeah, there are a lot of places you go wrong. Let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. Yeah, we can go at the back and talk about it.
We are talking at the country level and everything. Is institutions like AU, SADC, ECOWAS, do they have any contribution to this, or what role can they play in spearheading the emancipation of Africa?
Misha, who contributes the most money to the AU budget?
What you were talking about, people being educated here, I think Botswana does it.
Yeah. Botswana does it very well. And before they took out Gaddafi, he used to do it very well. I went to school with some students from Libya. When they come to the UK, other countries like from Zimbabwe or Botswana, you would find that during holidays, the students, they work to supplement their grants from their government. Students from Libya never used to work because the amount of money they would be given, they'll be living like kings. That's when you value your education and your human resource.
Maybe to answer your question, I presume the biggest budget for AU comes from America.
Yeah.
So maybe the question is, what can they do so that they can be dogs with teeth?
No, there's nothing they can do. You follow the
I
money.
think what you said about allies, it does work. Because if you look at World War I, World War II, they had allies, didn't they? In Africa, I think the problem we find is we are not united like that. So say one country says like this Traore guy who's saying this and that, the other countries will turn against him like yeah, mfana, shut up. Or these big countries go behind and say, look here, if you do a BCD, you get a BCD. Don't follow this one because this one is trying to free his people. But because we are not united, it's so easy to divide us.
Soko unit inonzwa nemari kana ukatarisa even in a small thing like a family, husband and wife, shaya mari muoni.
Tikabatana tinonyatsogona kushandisa maresources edu because tikabatana chaizvo chaizvo toti hapana munhu anotengesa maresources nemari iri pasi. Handiti one maresources edu toda kuamanufacture tega, kwete kungochera matombo tongotengesa ari matombo. Kana muda kuyazotenga kuno munotozotenga tatogadzirisa, tobatana takadaro, kwete kuti mumwe ari kutengesa mumwe ari kuramba. Zvakafanana nemafamasi. Handiti kana ndinotengesa fodya yenyu hati munoenda kumwe chete munotengesera ikoko. Imagine dai kwanguri kuti mese mobva maramba kunotengesa moti aiwa mitengo wenyu wakanyanya kudzika stereki. Handiti zvino mukati mumwe ari kuenda neuku mumwe ari kubva anzi uya kuno tikupe mari iwewe, munobatana chirudziro. Hapana havanetseke because maresources havaashayi, because toda kudya chop. We are not playing the long game. Long game ndeyekuti okay, if you don't want, fine. Vanouya because tinawo maresources acho. But in the meantime, because we want the money now, we want it quick, we sell our resources for very cheap. Ndosaka tisina mari. Tinoshaya mari seko tiri the richest continent in resources. In resources, we are the richest, but we are the poorest. How does that even work? They were saying Burkina Faso produces most electricity that's used in France, but people in Burkina Faso have got no electricity. How does that work? You have got the resources to produce their electricity, their petrol, their what, yet you don't have the same things they are getting from you. You don't have it. You are living in the dark. You don't have the electricity, but they are taking your electricity for free, practically. So if we unite and say, no, guys, if you want our resources, we are standing together as Africa. You don't get them for this amount. We are putting prices high. We are selling this. We want taxes. We want this. They are putting pressure now.
So, munaona problem in Etika. I always say we are never nation builders or empire builders.
No.
Because we look, let's learn from the Rhodesians and the history of Southern Tongot Sadak, history of Sadak. Tidambure in a nutshell. You find Guti, you had South Africa, right? Ichirwira and one British nema Boers, right? And then eventually, do you know Guti, even Zimbabwe yacho was part of the Union of South Africa. And then the whites who were in Zimbabwe voted against being part of the Union of South Africa. That's how Rhodesia was born. And then after the Rhodesians, now they have their Rhodesia. What did they do next? They experimented with the federation. They went in to join Malawi and Zambia, and they created Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, and Nyasaland. Yeah, that's all innovation and nation building and or empire building that I'm talking about. You are experimenting with all sorts of things. And the book I was reading, what book is it called? Do you know even there was a fight between the Portuguese and the Rhodesians because the Rhodesians wanted access to sea, so they were fighting the Mozambicans for them to grab part of Mozambique that includes Beira, so that that Rhodesia would have access to the sea. But all that to our politicians is just what or they've never even come across it. They've got no idea of that nation building or empire building. And here comes Trump now, who shows you how empires are built, how nations are built. What is he talking about? He's talking of Canada being the first fifth state of America. Canada is kicking and screaming, but Trump is saying, we're coming for you. And I think what Trump does, he speaks on top of the roof as well. I think this has been a policy of America that he saw, but these liberal-minded politicians, they don't want to say it in the open. It will be kept under wraps. But Trump is one who is just like us, who can say anything. So he say, we're taking Canada, whether you like or not, it's going to become part of America. He's talking about Greenland being part of America. I'm taking Panama Canal, it's part of us. This is the real world this is now geopolitics. It's got no moral sentiments at all. It's about power and money. You do things that are to your best interest. If you want morals, then go somewhere else.
But isn't that the same thing also that what Russia was doing?
Exactly. That's why the Europeans were so much against Trump, because he's showing the same thing that Russia is doing, to say, no, it's quite common. Great power politics works that way. I always say to people, boundaries are shifting sand that are drawn by the powerful. So what will happen today if China, for some reason, become a superpower? It can choose to redraw all the maps of the world. This idea that Zimbabwe is going to be an everlasting entity, it's not given. Rhodesia there was nothing called Rhodesia until the great power, Great Britain, came and said, oh, this piece is now Rhodesia. This is now South Africa. It's not given that those entities will continue to remain. It depends on the greater power politics of what's happening in the world at that moment.
Let's also unpack what Kore has said. I think he's alluding to regarding Ibrahim Traore. He says it's worth noting Ibrahim Traore is not the first person to do it. The first story of Burkina Faso started with the true legend, Thomas Sankara. So the question is he alluding that Traore might also suffer the same fate that Thomas Sankara suffered as well?
I think what he's trying to say is, we know about Sankara, and Traore, I think, knows that he can die anytime, but he's a soldier. His mindset is a soldier. He's not a common man, and I think he's prepared for it, because he knows what he's touched now is really ruffling feathers in the Western world. I was on Twitter the other day trying to I was just reading something about Ibrahim Traore, and I see a ban in you. They say the location you are, this tweet, you cannot read it. It had been taken off. So those are the tools that the Western world can use. And I always say the issue with us Africans is we are living in a world of platforms. We don't have those platforms to ourselves, and you can be deplatformed at any time. So I hope some that Ibrahim Traore will be the beginning of a revolution in everything in Africa. We build our own spaces, we build our own platforms, we build our own sort of history, we build our own future, our own currents going forward. But we don't need to be on top of the roof to say this is what we are doing. You need your smart brains. You know, when I talk of Project Manhattan, when America built the nuclear bomb, those people were driven to the desert, right? Away from everything else. And one person once asked me to say, you know, we have this crisis in Zimbabwe of the currency. I say, you need a Project Manhattan for Zimbabwe to address the currency issue. You take the brightest of Zimbabwe's economists, of mathematicians, of computer scientists, of physics experts, of sociologists, of farmers like like Mkoma Jena, and go and sort of isolate them, put them in some desert somewhere in Harare, in Zimbabwe, and say you're not coming out of there until you come up with a solution for the Zimbabwean currency. Until
Boss Berad.
Yeah. You're not gonna see your wives and your kids until you sort this mess out. This is what America does. And I think right now they are quiet. They've got a project. I think Trump said it. It's called Stargate or something. It's a project on artificial intelligence. So they take the best of their brains in that field and put them away to come up with solutions to those kind of problems. And China is doing the same. Russia does the same. So for you to be a great power or to have a meaningful change in things that you do, you need to be serious and plan strategically.
Yeah. I think this is a subject that will not be exhausted in one discussion. We can always come back to it. As we will have more episodes, but as a way of wrapping up, we may just need to have some final thoughts from you, our panelists, and if anyone on listening or watching, if you can put your final thoughts or comments, and if it needs to be responded, we will respond to it as we go along. In this final episode, I just want you, Shumba, Jena, and Soko, to give your final either advice or comment. But particularly, I would want someone to give an advice to someone who might be today is Captain Ibrahim Traore, or tomorrow it might be someone different. It might be the Malema, you never know. What advice would we give such a person when they are trading in this terrain? Anyone can take that, and then the others, we can just decide what you want to comment on.
Angela Kore.
It's worth noting Ibrahim Traore is not the first person. That's the first. That's the last one. It's not said anything else.
Yeah, so I would say my advice to Ibrahim Traore and the youth of Africa is basically to be patient and play the long game, because if you think things will just happen without planning, I think it's a fallacy. So what you need to do is stop so much preaching and actually be pragmatic and do things that needs to be done. So my advice would be to focus on healthcare and education, to focus on food security, to focus on national security. Those are to me the pillars on which the state rests. And I hope to all the African youth, they push their governments to achieve those aims, and then the sky will be the limit then once we achieve in those areas, because we need our people to be educated, we need guaranteed health care for our people, and we need food security. It's not worth that we have to rely on other countries to supply food for us. So that would be my advice. And we stop really preaching on top of the roof, but try to really do all these things, and then when we have accomplished them, then tell the world, rather than going on the rooftop to say we want to do this, because your enemies are listening and they can jeopardize all that you intend to do. So mostly let's focus on delivery and innovation and do it quietly until we have achieved our aims. I think that will be my advice to the youth and to the presidents of Africa.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
And then, okay, on my side, I will say we've done so many things as they have been done before. And I think it's high time we should be innovative. Let's venture into those unknown territories and we see what happens in there. Because if we keep on following, being complacent and waiting for what will happen next, we won't go anywhere. The world is moving in circles and circles, and we will forever be people that are regarded as second-class citizens in the world. So I would rather say, take a bold decision, go on and move on. The same like what happened if you take an example of this of our country, to say if there were no people that decided to go to war, then nothing would have happened. Would have still been sitting and then saying, okay, what will then be the next? What can we do next? So let's be bold and let's take those innovations and move forward. Though we must also be careful because the world has changed so much. We cannot just do it blindly, which means I will also be on the same side with what Shumba had said. Let's do it tactically and safely as well, and protect ourselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say, I think unity is our answer. And also kugaranaka kuona dzevamwe. This has been done. We won't be the first to do it. We've got countries like China, like Singapore, countries that are coming up quietly and becoming world powers. Bangladesh is on the way, India is on the way. I mean, we've got countries already doing it. Let's see what they are doing and we copy. And we also apply that to our people, to our countries. Because if it's already being done, why aren't we doing it? That's all. I don't know much.
Thank you very much. And I think Corey has been busy typing in the chat box, and let's see what he has said since the last time. His first comment was Africa's challenges stems from a complex mix of historical, political, and structural factors. Colonization left behind weak institutions, artificial borders, and economies dependent on raw exports. Then he goes on to say, post-independence, many African countries faced authoritarian rule, corruption, and poor governance. often worsened by external interference and debt dependence. It did not end there. Political elite prioritize short-term power over long-term national development. Additionally, over-reliance on foreign aid and inconsistent policies have stunted local innovation and accountability. It did not end there. Africa's potential is vast, but success depends on leadership committed to good governance, education, economic diversification, and reducing inequality. And finally, he said that the narrative is changing, but the transformation requires time. As we have always alluded, that patience is needed. Unit, as Soko has said, and the resilient institutions, as Shumba has always alluded in all his discussions, rooted in local realities, like Soko has been saying. So, wow, what an enlightening and thought-provoking conversation we have today on this topic is Traore, the model of youth in Africa. And I want to say thank you to you, our panelists. I'll start with this Soko, who is her main thumbit is unity. Even in the discussion, she talked about unity. Vakazopedzisira vakati aiwaka kugaranaka uona dzevamwe kana China, India, Singapore have done it. Why don't we just go and learn on their feet? Then vakati we need to be resilient. We have done many things and many leaders have come and gone, but we need to venture into new territories, new ideas. We need to be bold. Given an example of some people, young people, during their time who went to war in Zimbabwe to bring about independence. What are the young people doing today? How shall we show that we are bold and resilient? Shumba, his advice to the youth of Africa and those in position of leadership, he says, this is a long game. We need patience. It cannot come overnight. And we stop talking on the rooftops. And his main areas of focus is if we sort out our education, if we sort out our health and our food security in the backyard, then we can be ready to tackle the world. So, to our viewers, thank you for joining us, your commenting and being part of this growing movement. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Continuing sharing your thoughts in the comments, tag someone who needs to watch this, and make sure you subscribe, like, and follow Champions Network TV so you never miss any other bold conversation. Until next time, I'm Mija, your host, reminding you, keep questioning, keep building, and above all, stay championing the truth. Take care and see you on the next episode.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.